Hello everyone and welcome back. We're doing another episode of the weekly Cataclysm, which could probably do with a rename because I don't know if there's going to be enough content for a weekly episode, but this week there is. So we're going to look at some of the pull requests, some of the new additions to the experimental that have come to exist over the last 7 days. I did notice, however, that sometimes when I'm searching through here, it does not put them in chronological order. So it is possible, of course, that I miss things during these episodes. If there's something I missed that you want me to talk about, leave me a comment, let me know, and I will do my research and I will get back to you. This week we have a couple of things, many of which are small, some of which are bigger, and some of which are updates on what we talked about last week. So we're going to start off nice and easy with some small PRs that aren't necessarily going to change the way that you play the game, but it's fun that they exist anyway. We spoke last week about thermometers being deconstructible from freezers and refrigerators. And here we have Frizuman, or however that is pronounced, has added the thermometer to various item groups in the game. If you don't know what an item group is, it's basically where spawns come from, where items come from in the game. So for instance, the kitchen item group represents kitchen items, and that's what you'll find mostly. Like if you go in a house and you're in the kitchen, odds are good that all the items you see there are coming from kitchen related item groups. So he's added thermometer, or she has added thermometers from, well, they have man in their name, they're probably a dude, who knows. Various new places in the game that you can pick up and find thermometers, which is nice. I referenced last week that I didn't really know where you could find thermometers in the game, so this is a pretty neat follow-up to that. Obviously not an earth-shattering change, but it is a nice little thing I thought I would mention because we touched on it last week. Next we have the poisonous and psychoactive shroom spawn PR, and basically if you've played the game for a long period of time, you probably remember back in the day when you would forage for mushrooms in the wild. Some of them would be poisonous and some of them would be hallucinogenic. And apparently, somewhere along the way, that got lost. I guess Night Prianic, I don't know how to say any of these names. I guess he said, or he or she is saying that, oh, that was my mistake. But basically, they weren't spawning the way they were supposed to, and now they will. So if you have been foraging mushrooms in the game and you haven't been worrying about it because you haven't seen poisonous or hallucinogenic mushrooms for probably months now, because I can't remember the last time I came across a negative mushroom, but they exist again in the game. This is a nice change, obviously something that well, I'm not going to go into it, but there are, it's a reason to raise your survival skill. It's a reason to be a little cautious because mushrooms in real life are not something that you want to just pick up and eat. That's something that you really need to know what you're doing in order to harvest wild mushrooms. So I think this is a good change. I guess technically it is a bug fix. It's not really a change per se, but once again we will be finding poisonous and psychoactive mushrooms. Go ahead and move on. Next we have from Illison, I want to say. So basically, this adds a new library to the game, and it's a very, very large building. It's made up of multiple tiles. It is a 2x2 building, which I think is cool. There's also a second floor, which I guess is what this is depicting. So there's some stairs. A very large public library. I have a real soft spot for map gen in the game. It's my favorite thing to do when I'm modding or editing the game. So every time something like this comes up, it's always nice to see someone else's map gen and see how it stacks up against your own. And looking at this, I mean, it's really nice. I mean, well, at the end of the day, it's a library, right? So what is a library? It's mostly just shelving and books, but I really like this. I really like any time new map gen gets added to the game. So I thought this was pretty cool. Unfortunately for vanilla players, it is added to the urban development mod, which they expressed. This is an interesting addition, provides the perfect place to put it. I'm inclined to agree. I think that this fits with the other if you're not familiar with the urban development mod, it adds many urban buildings that are often multiple. So if they're residences, they're typically apartments. There's lots of urban buildings that tend to be larger, what they call overmap specials, which, if you're not familiar, it basically means that it's multiple glued together tiles. So for instance, if you're looking at, say, a butcher shop, it's usually one tile, and this building is 2 tiles by 2 tiles. So it's split here and split here. And all that an overmap special is it takes one tile and basically glues it to another tile so that they will always appear connected. So I do think that this was a good spot. Maybe that was probably a terrible explanation of of what they are, but basically it's a very large building, and I do think that it fits with the urban development mod. This was based off of a real life library's floor plan, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, it's a pretty neat addition to the game, and I'm always real happy to see things like that. So I thought I would mention it because, I mean, it's just cool. Do you not think that's cool? I think that's cool. Next up, we have, from Kevin. Oh, no, from Curse Twist, who is, if I recall, is the person who is currently putting all the new roofs in the game. Basically, this is a PR that adds a new version. Well, it adds a police station roof and a new layout for the police station itself, and increased spawns apparently. Potentially a roof gym, and as well as a new layout. This is, I assume, the new layout. In fact, I believe it is. I don't remember there being restrooms in the original layout of the jail here. I assume this is contraband. No, this is contraband, and this would be the armory, I guess. Or maybe not. I haven't seen this in game, and I haven't explored it. It's a lot of badges, though. As well as adding the roof, of course. This appears to be just a plain roof. He did mention, or she did mention, they mentioned a roof gym. Maybe this is the new layout? I'm not 100%. Oh, look at this. This is definitely new. I've never seen anything like that. Okay, so aside from me saying, I don't know what that is, here are some images from the new police station, which I think is neat. I was concerned when I read about this because the police station is a possible starting location for people who take certain, certain scenarios in the game. So I was concerned that I believe they referenced upping the spawns. I didn't know if that meant adding additional monsters or items, and so it became a little bit of a concern. I haven't actually seen or played it in game yet, but by looking at these images, I don't think that it's overpowered or anything like that. Anything super significant, like presumably this is the armory or this is the armory, I would assume that they're still very difficult to access for a level 1 for a character that's just starting out. And obviously hacking terminals comes with an inherent risk of releasing security measures against you, which you really don't want to do when you're just starting a game. Here's the rooftop gym they were talking about. Neat little thing. Yeah, and I thought I would mention this because I've mentioned the roof additions in previous episodes. In the previous episode. And in addition to this, we also had some other bumps to police, which we will talk about next. So I thought I would give a shout out to Curse Twist. I do appreciate the work that they're putting in, and I hope that other people do as well. The additional police gear is the other police change that I wanted to talk about. Basically, this takes so we'll just read the PR. It adds and modifies various items for the riot control officer profession to chase a little bit of realism. So for instance, starting the game previously as a riot control officer would put you, I think, in Kevlar and some stuff, and riot armor. So we're going to spawn with riot armor now as opposed to a ballistic. Well, this adds the riot armor to the game. It also adds a police duty belt, which is just a belt that has storage and has a slot for a tonfa. Can wear batons and tonfas on this particular belt. It can now spawn on cops and in police stations. It added the ability for tonfa-like weapons to be clipped to said belt. And then they modified the riot control officer start profession to give them that belt and change their... Okay, so they started with an MBR vest. I thought it was just a regular bulletproof vest, but it's been swapped from MBR to the riot armor, which I think, again, is a good change. It adds a small amount of realism and makes those items a little more... I mean, honestly, anytime new items or locations get added to the game, I'm usually pretty okay with it. The only time I'm ever really hesitant when changes come down the pipe is when they're new creatures, because I think that creatures require a lot of playtesting before they really get dialed in. Or maybe that's just my own personal experience, because I haven't had very much success implementing the new enemies. But so these are relatively small changes, but it did change the police gear as well as what cob zombies will drop. So I thought I would mention it in combination with the roof changes and general changes to the police station itself. This was by Echo Mirage. Next we have warm corpses. This is a bug fix apparently. So if you've been playing the game for any period of time, you know that we've had some temperature issues in the past, and previously when you would butcher an animal or a zombie or whatever, the items produced from that harvest would immediately take on the ambient temperature of the world around them. So if you butchered a creature and it's, say, 5 degrees outside, the stuff you would get from that corpse would be frozen, even if it didn't really, even if, say, so you go out hunting, right, you find a deer, kill said deer, harvest the deer immediately, all the meat would be frozen. And that was a point of contention for a lot of people, myself included. And that should no longer be true. Now, when you butcher a corpse, you will get an item that is... So basically now, when a creature dies, that corpse has a natural temperature. If it's warm-blooded, it's set to 37 degrees Celsius if the monster has the warm-blooded tag. Otherwise, they are set to the environment temperature. So if it's cold-blooded, obviously it wouldn't be producing warmth, therefore it wouldn't produce a warm corpse. However, things like zombies do have the warm-blooded tag. Obviously, creatures like deer and squirrel and things also are warm-blooded. And so their temperature of the corpse is set to a certain number, to, I guess, body temperature. I don't know what body temperature is in Celsius. And then... now when you harvest an item from a corpse, they absorb the temperature of whatever the corpse was. So now, if you go hunting and you kill a deer, that deer dies, and its body temperature is set to a certain warmth because it is a warm-blooded creature. If you butcher that deer for meat, that meat will also be set to whatever the temperature of the corpse was. Now, corpse temperatures obviously decrease over time and will eventually freeze, but if you butcher it shortly after having killed it, it will have a warmth enough that the materials you get back won't be frozen. And here I have a world set up. We will spawn a creature. Let's go with a deer because that's the example. Oh, well, I don't really have... That's okay. Let's go with a deer because that was the example I was using. Let's kill said deer. I don't think I have a knife on me. And we will quickly butcher this creature. I also, to be fair, it is winter and it is 6 a.m. so the ambient temperature in the world should be very cold right now. And if we look at this corpse, you'll see that none of these items are frozen, where a week ago, had we done this exact thing, these would have all come out frozen. So that's a really nice change for those of us that have been a little frustrated with the state of the temperature system in the game. This leads into the next PR that we're going to talk about, which is rotting corpses. Corpses now rot, and they show their rot status to the player. Basically, normally when you butcher things, they get their rotten status based on the age of the corpse, but it was not visible, which can be very frustrating when you don't really know, is this going to yield good meat or rotten meat? And so now, when a corpse is created, they rot. It will have a tag after the name of the corpse, such as fresh, old, or rotten, to let you know what sort of material you'll get back upon harvest. These are assigned assuming the corpse has a shelf life of 24 hours, same as the meat. It's directly inherited from the corpse, so if the corpse has 10 hours worth of rot, then all of the harvest results will also have 10 hours worth of rot. So this of course means that if you're going to butcher a creature for meat, you need to quickly use that meat, because every minute that the corpse was on the ground is now a minute less that meat will be good for. And we can see this if we go back to here are some zombies I had to kill to get a smooth place. If we look, it's listed as fresh, and if we were to wait, which I'm not going to make you sit here and wait, but we'll go ahead and wait till the next day. I just realized this probably won't work because they will reanimate before I have the opportunity to do anything with them. So this is not a good. They are currently all reanimating around me. But so that's the case. Corpses now have rot and will rot over time, and you can tell just by looking at a corpse how fresh said corpse is. So here we have a Shrieker zombie corpse, which in fact has rotten. So very good. And here we have another Shrieker, which is currently cold. Is currently fresh. So we now know. You'll also see that this corpse has now got the cold tag, which is what we were talking about earlier with the temperature changes. Still not frozen after several hours in the cold, but it is the temperature is gradually declining. The next change we're going to talk about are the gasoline zombies. Okay, I'll reserve my judgments till we talk about it. Basically, there is a new zombie. It is the gasoline zombie. It is apparently in the zombie brute upgrade tree. It is slow, which is very good. It leaks a trail of gasoline, which doesn't really impact much. And when it dies, it spreads fire. This is something. Let's just look at it. Okay, we're going to look at it. We're going to go ahead and spawn one in just to show you. Actually, what we're going to do, we're going to teleport away first so we have a little privacy away from all these reviving monsters. Nope, that's a deer. Gas. And so here we have a gasoline zombie. Currently doesn't have a tile, or it might. I don't manually update my tile sets. I wait until they're updated. In the core game, I don't update manually. So currently I don't have a tile for this. So if we watch this thing, we'll go ahead and move around a little bit, and ideally it will start to leak some gasoline, so we can see, there you go, it's leaking gasoline occasionally. The amount of gasoline it leaks is a bit high. I don't think that there's currently any way to retrieve spilled liquids like this. If there were, this could be an easy unlimited source of gasoline, which would be a real bummer. And the only other thing you really need to know about this thing, because it's not super dangerous if you're prepared to deal with it. However, let's go ahead and spawn in just a spear. Go ahead and wield our spear. Here's the real issue. Gonna hit this thing, and there you go. We killed it, and it immediately exploded into a fireball, which, if you're hitting it with melee, is enough to kill you. If I wait even one turn, I will be dead. So let's see if we can teleport away and save ourselves. Probably not, because we're on fire. Okay, so we're still alive. Problem is, in a corridor, let's illustrate this a little more clearly. Alright, and here we are in a mansion with said zombie, and I've given myself a Saiga. And here we have, I thought I already reloaded. Okay, here we have this creature. I've bumped our shotgun skill very high. We will shoot, and you'll see it explodes in a ball of fire. Now, in a house or in a corridor or really anywhere that you would encounter this creature other than out in the open, this is pretty much going to ruin your day. I am not a fan of this particular inception of this creature. You go ahead and close this. I'm not a fan of this particular creature. I think that we discussed this on the forum prior to it being created and added to the game, and the feedback that I gave is the same feedback that I would give now, in that, one, it makes no sense that there would be a creature that drips gasoline, and it would make no sense that this creature would explode into fire simply because there was gasoline on it. Hitting something with a spear should not ignite a creature into an explosion. So I really, really dislike, and I'm not the only one who dislikes that this was added to the game, because I just don't think it makes sense. Similarly, I've also advocated in the past that the smoker zombie should not really exist, because something that is producing smoke on the regular would be consuming itself. Like, there's no way to create smoke from nothing. And so I've always believed that the smoker should be changed so that it only smokes within sight of the player when the player, basically, it actively chooses to expel smoke, and when it does so, it gradually damages itself until its death. I feel similarly about this creature. It just doesn't make sense to me that it would naturally produce gasoline, and it doesn't make sense to me that it would burst into flames, really for no reason other than because somebody thought this was a neat idea. I really don't think it fits with Cataclysm, but at the end of the day, that's not my decision to make. So, I would also point out that they have been added to the No Explosive Zombies mod. The problem is that the No Explosives Zombie mod also removes... Okay, I thought this removed boomers, but it doesn't. So this would remove grenadiers, grenadier elites. These are on the chopping block anyway. It doesn't matter. We'll talk about that some other time. And a flamer. So if you don't like them, which I don't, you can play with the No Explosive Zombies mod and never have to deal with them. But I thought I would point them out because, like I said, it doesn't make sense that they would burst into flames. So a new player coming across a creature that's leaking gasoline maybe wouldn't know that hitting that with your melee weapon pretty much guarantees that your character is going to die, which I think is a dick move, because lots of new players play this game all the time, and I think that there's already a very high level of difficulty, and I think it's really important to keep new players in mind when you're developing new features, because if you don't communicate things to your new players properly, they won't come back. Like, if people start playing this game and they bump into one of these guys in the corridor and smack it with their weapon, and then either one, they burst into flames and die, or two, they're severely burned and take days to recuperate, they're not going to want to come back. Like, whatever, we're not going to talk about game theory right now and feels bad moments and all that stuff. We can talk about that some other time. But so that's the gasoline zombie. I wanted to talk about it because it is something that could devastate a fledgling character. And yeah. And finally, we have the new crouching mechanics. This is something that people have been asking for, I mean, really as long as I've been playing, which is over a year at this point. So I think that this is something that lots of people, if we look, yep, just about everybody weighed in on this with good emojis saying that they really like this. Basically, this grants the player the ability to crouch. Currently, this is implemented as the movement key button, which is what you use it's the default of the double quotes on your keyboard, the symbol above your apostrophe, which changes your movement mode from walking to sprinting to crouching. So if we look over here in my message menu, I've now started running. If I press the button again, I will start crouching. If I press the button again, I move to walking. Now, the important thing about this is that it allows you to crouch behind certain obstacles to obscure enemies' vision of you. I don't see any good examples here. I suppose you can crouch behind a chair. I don't know if it works. So let's drop our clairvoyance artifact and see if this affects our vision. So we're currently standing. If we run and then we crouch, I thought it would perhaps adjust our vision radius to reflect that we're hiding behind something. Let's try this. It doesn't seem to have an impact. Does it? It does not. Okay. I thought there would be a visual cue that you were crouching. It does not appear so. This is by far the most recent thing for me. I haven't actually played with this or had time to experiment with it, so I wasn't sure how much it really affects. I thought there would be a visual cue that would let you know you're partially hidden, but it's exactly what you think it is. It is a crouch that reduces the creature's ability to see you. In addition to this, various items, furniture and terrain items, so basically the stuff that you come across, like I was just at some benches and desks and things like that, have varying coverage values, which will protect you further from being seen. So here are the technical bits. If you want to read this, of course, I'll link the PR in the description below. However, the gist of it is that it reduces the enemy's ability to see you, right? So crouching is for stealth, and this is the foundation of it. I do expect this to be improved, like I would expect or encourage them to have an adjusted vision radius of your own to reflect that your character is behind cover. I think that'd be a good, easy way to show people that you are in fact in cover. I also think it needs its own button, which because lots of people are used to hitting running, then walking, but you're not walking. Now you're crouching, which means your movement speed is even worse, 236 as opposed to 118 while walking. So it can be very dangerous if you're not aware of it. And I think there's we need to reflect this to a new player. We need some way of communicating this to new players, how it works and all that, without them having to go and read a PR and understand the nitty gritty, which again, I have not been able to do currently. But basically you crouch, and crouching makes you less visible, and being adjacent to or having a line of sight between you and the creature being blocked by a furniture item increases the likelihood that they will not see you. So this is pretty neat. I know a lot of people were very, very excited about this. It's something I've heard a lot of people talk about and ask questions about. Lots of people are weighing in and going to continue weighing in. There's a thread on the forum where they are discussing it. Currently, I haven't been reading this. It's not super Snake Plissken, ladies and gentlemen. I don't. He went by Snake Plissken in the second Metal Gear Solid game, so that's why I said. But of course, Snake Plissken is a reference. But anyway, so there is a thread discussing it. I'm sure people will discuss it. If you're curious about how exactly it works, you're going to have to go and read the PR itself. I have not looked into the code because I do not understand most of the code or what it's doing. But admittedly here, it's not super complex. It's basically, I mean, you get it. You've played other games with crouching and with stealth. So we'll probably talk more about this in the future as it continues to develop. But right now I just haven't had the experience with it to really relay a lot of information to you. So I just wanted to make you aware of it so you can do the research on your own if you're interested. And of course, the more we all play with it in the game, the more easily, just like sprinting, when sprinting first came out, you know, there was some amount of confusion about it. Everyone understands how sprinting works, but not everyone had, you know, even pretty recently, people would come to the forum and say, well, how do I sprint? And it's like, yeah, we never communicated this to the player very well. And so I think that, well, whatever. Anyway, I think that the most important thing is to give a visual cue to the player so they understand that they're in cover, and to give it its own button, and then have some way of communicating this to new players. I don't think the tutorial that's currently in game is up to date. I don't know. Maybe people are updating it. I don't know anyone who's ever played the tutorial. So, and then finally, I wanted to discuss what we talked about last week, which was the stomach contents changes. I wanted to point out that there is a thread where someone gave a very helpful description, and it's right here. system works. Currently, your survivor needs about 2,500 kcals. I don't know what that is exactly, but I assume that that's the calorie value that's expressed in the game. Every day you need about 2,500 kcals. Hunger is different from physical caloric needs and is instead based on the volume of food that is in your stomach and how long it's been since you last ate. If your character is hungry, but you don't really need to eat, your hunger display will show as hungry. If you are hungry but you do need to eat, your hunger display will show very hungry. And if you are hungry and you have a calorie deficit, your hunger display will show famished, and with a severe deficit at starving. Your calorie count is internally measured out of 77,000 kcals, and you can see how much in deficit surplus you have in debug mode. I myself have fallen into the trap of eating just to get the hungry tag go away. I was very confused by this system. In my Let's Play, I have a character who's currently starving, and I didn't really understand. But after I went back and watched the footage, I realized that every single day I just ate a little bit to get this hungry to go away, but I wasn't eating nearly enough calories to actually sustain my character. So that is a concern I have, is that new players will think, oh, I'm hungry, I'll snack, and then they don't realize that they're gradually accumulating a deficit for calories. So I do think we need to communicate that a little better, but it is a brand new system and it is being actively worked on. One of the things that's going to change is that hungry and very hungry will probably go away and be replaced with other messages that, okay, I don't see them anywhere. I thought they would be very easy to find, but basically there's a PR that will change the hunger. There is going to be changes to the hunger and thirst descriptions so that it better communicates to the player that, hey, it's not necessarily that you're hungry, but you could probably eat something because it's been a while since you have eaten anything. And then, of course, we'll keep the starving and famished as, or maybe they'll get rebranded as well to relay that you're working on a calorie deficit, which is, I mean, you're starving at that point. You're malnourished at that point. So this is undergoing changes. It is not, this is all very confusing. I read the PRs and I didn't necessarily understand most of this stuff. So thanks a lot to another simulacrum for relaying this to us. This was extremely helpful to me. And so I wanted to make this, I wanted to point this out because it was such a big discussion. It's such a big change that has been getting a lot of discussion around it. So if you're interested, I will try to remember to link this in the description below. I also wanted to point out that we also, when this was implemented, I pointed out that although I think it needed tweaked, that this was ultimately a pretty good change, and I was pretty excited for this because this opened the door to adding new systems to the game that work within this particular system. And then we've already seen an example of that. It's not in the game yet. This is something that is a work in progress, I believe. But basically, here's an example of exactly what I was talking about. Now that we have a new stomach content system, we can do things like have various activities in the game burn additional calories, and therefore your character needs to consume more calories. We can have a variable amount of calorie intake that's necessary for each character based on what they're doing. You go out and you chop down trees all day, you're probably going to need more calories than if you sat in your base and read books all day. And so I thought that was a really neat change. There's also going to be, I believe this references being overweight, or not overweight per se, but being, effect for obesity, overweight, and underweight, which would be a separate PR. These are, of course, not things that are in the game currently, but they're examples of things that will now become part of the game because of this initial change. This is why I think that most of these major changes to the way we do things, major systems in the game, ultimately breed a better environment because they open the door to other things down the road. Same with the crouching system. Right now it's a very bare bones, minimal type thing. Yeah, you can crouch and it has currently a minimal benefit in the game. But now that we have some foundations to build off of, you could do all kinds of stuff with with the game. You could implement a snake-style box hiding system if that's what you wanted to do, because we're starting right now to develop a stealth element to the game. So ultimately, these are very good changes that over time will take shape and grow into more significant things. I have a lot of ideas for the stealth system. I don't have the coding know-how to help, but I can definitely put those ideas out there, and maybe somebody else will grapple onto them. So I think that's probably going to do it for today. Not as big of a change as the stomach contents system last week. There's nothing earth-shattering in this particular week's episode. And honestly, I wasn't even going to do an episode this week because there wasn't that much that really did happen over the last 7 days. But then the crouching system got implemented, and I kind of wanted to talk about the 2-story library because I thought that was really neat. And so I decided, yeah, we'll do a show this week. I might turn it into a bi-weekly show, but for now, here, we are here and we are reviewing these things. I do wish I'd had more time to review some of the changes, and I do wish I understood more code than I do, but baby steps, right? Anyway, that's going to do it for today. I hope you liked the episode. We'll be back probably next week with 7 more days of PRs, and we'll talk about them. And we'll talk about the big stuff as we go, and we might go back and talk about some of these things that maybe get hammered out a little bit better over the next couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll have an update on the crouching system and exactly how that can benefit you and the best way to play around with that. So for now, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.